Chapter 22 Mirror Shards. Mirrors reflect the world honest and true, sugarcoating nothing. All the horror of the world shown exactly as it is. Each sliver of a shattered mirror will reflect a different, equally cruel piece of reality. 28th of December 2033, 5:55 AM. Folder Dominion, Battle Helix. Minor signature, C53171. Physical location, Phobos. Braca screamed. I'd heard men scream before. Training accidents, equipment failures, or in the chaos of emergency drills. This was different. This was worse. This was the sound of a man being eaten alive by liquid flame that refused to stop burning. Braca dropped to his knees, his free hand slapping uselessly at the fire. The stench hit me like a truck, burning leather mixing with seared flesh, and an unknown acrid stink far worse than ordinary flame. The napalm had bonded to his skin, flames feeding upon him. Braca! Luna abandoned cover, sprinting toward him. The squad, I shouted. Luna, we've got incoming. The kill squad crested the ruins. All 12 of them, spreading into a semicircle around our position. They'd seen Braca fall. They'd seen Luna break cover. And they were very, very happy about it. Luna skidded to a halt, caught between her fallen comrade and the demons closing in. Her halberd came up, silver steel gleaming. I'll hold them, she snarled. Help Braca! She launched herself at the nearest demon before I could argue. Her miracle of speed transformed her into a blur, the halberd singing as it carved through chitin and ichor. 2 demons fell in as many heartbeats, but the others were already surrounding her, wicked curving blades seeking gaps in her defense. I knelt beside Braca. The fire was spreading, crawling up his neck towards his face. His eyes were wide with agony, but he was still conscious, still fighting. Shield, he gasped through gritted teeth. Use the shield. My healing uses fire. It's useless. I grabbed the World Aegis. It was heavier than expected, the bismuth thrumming with absorbed power. I didn't know how to use it in a fight, but I could at least try to scrape the burning napalm away from his skin. The shield's edge functioned like a razor, peeling away chunks of burning material. Braca howled, but the fire stopped spreading. I could see the damage now, 3rd-degree burns across his shoulder and upper arm, the flesh beneath it raw and weeping. He'd live, but he wouldn't be fighting at full capacity. Luna needs help, I said, shoving the shield back into his good hand. Go, he forced out. I'll cover. I rose, drawing my Glock. Luna was a whirlwind of death dancing through the demon pack, but she was fighting 6 opponents at once, and even her skill could not avoid every hit. I saw a blade score across her thigh and another nick her forearm. She was bleeding, and she was slowing. I raised my weapon. In my head, a mental metronome tracked each second. The cooldown on cataclysmic criticals had just over a second remaining, which was good because I couldn't risk triggering it with Luna in the middle of a melee. One misplaced eruption of ice and fire would kill her as surely as any demon blade. I squeezed out shot after shot, relying upon the miracle of calculation to find joints, eyes, and other vulnerable points, then stopped blasting before the cooldown reset. One demon stumbled as my bullet shattered its knee. Another reeled back, clutching a ruined eye socket. The attackers were tough, and my ordinary pistol rounds weren't enough to drop them with one shot. Luna capitalized on every opening I created, her halberd finishing the grim work my bullets had started. 4 demons down. 5. 6. But more were coming. The original kill squad had been reinforced, and another wave was scrambling up the ruins, drawn by the sounds of battle. And worse, far worse, I caught movement in the sky above the main battlefield. Angel Scouts, 3 of them, circling like vultures, their attention drawn by the commotion on our perch. And, behind them, was that a tentacle? Luna, I shouted. Company above, you're 1 o'clock, up 4-0. My Earth military jargon came naturally, but definitely wasn't understood. Luna didn't look where I'd indicated or ask what I meant, but I saw her jaw tighten. The remaining demons pressed their advantage, sensing our confusion. Braca struggled to his feet, his burned arm hanging uselessly at his side, but his good hand clutching the World Aegis. He planted himself between Luna and the reinforcements streaming up the rubble, the shield raised in defiance. Without a true weapon in hand, he had positioned himself to shield bash the first foe that reached him, and to block the rest. Come on then, he growled at the approaching demons. I stood back to back with him, gun raised towards the circling angels. My finger rested on the trigger, but I held my fire. If I shot now, before the cooldown finished, I'd only hit 1 angel scout and the other 2 would dive on us. Then we'd be fighting a 3-fronted war. They didn't know my limitations, and I could use that. I shifted my aim between them, waiting for them to group up. This battlefield and this whole war was a mess. I joined this fight to protect children and begin the quest that promised a way home. Now, I was counting seconds between shots on someone else's battlefield. I mumbled to myself, no second guessing yourself, Elishia. This is the right choice. Luna finished the last of the original kill squad with a brutal decapitation, then spun to face the second wave. Blood ran freely from half a dozen wounds, but her eyes burned with fury. Her miracle of Argent Weave worked wonders, conjuring silver bandages only blood could pass back into, but she was still bleeding profusely. Her magic had nothing to help Braka's burns. The Angel Scouts began their descent as the reinforcing demons reached Braka's position. I could now see what Luna would have known all along. All three were aspects of Wrath. The countdown in my head reached 0, and I fired. Luna and Braka were holding their own, so I aimed for the Angels. I'd get one big shot, then we'd be in a 3-way melee. The miracle of calculation computed the bullet's trajectory and displayed it in gold in my mind. The 3 aspects of Wrath descended in a V formation, the lead angel half a wingspan ahead of the trailing 2. The lead carried a crackling lance. The 2 flankers each wielded a pair of short swords, arcs of electricity spitting between the blades. I aimed for the leader's chest. The center of mass of the biggest target gave the highest probability for a critical strike. The Glock gave a familiar kick in my hand. The bullet closed the gap in a fraction of a second. It punched through the lead angel's breastplate, and the cryovolcano's fury detonated inside the wound. Ice erupted first, locking the angel rigid in mid-dive. Wings frozen in a grotesque spread. Magma followed, splitting the ice shell from within. The explosion sprayed molten rock and crystalline shrapnel across the trailing pair. One flanker caught a blast of magma-sheathed ice in its face and shrieked, tumbling sideways. The other banked hard, its short swords trailing sparks, and pulled out of the dive. The blinded one spiraled into the demon reinforcements below Braka, smashed through 3 insectile bodies, then cratered onto the ancient stonework. It thrashed, still alive, clawing at the ice embedded in its eyes. Demons pounced, relieving pressure on Braka. The second flanker recovered fast. It abandoned the dive for a lateral sweep directly at me. Short swords held wide in a cruel grip aimed at taking my head from both sides simultaneously. Incoming right, I snapped, emptying 3 rounds into its path. Calculation guided each shot, but the angel twisted mid-flight with preternatural grace. 2 rounds sparked off its pauldrons. The third caught its wing, punching through feathers into the joint beneath. One blade opened my stomach as it flew past. My hit had unbalanced it just enough to weaken the killing strike. It still hurt worse than anything I'd endured, except for childbirth. Lightning crackled into the wound, and I convulsed, barely able to stay on my feet. The aspect didn't drop. It recovered, turned, and compensated for the wounded wing through raw fury, and closed the gap between us in a heartbeat. The World Eager swept across my field of vision. Braka had read the attack, pivoting despite his burns, and his shield caught both short swords before they could strike me again. Lightning arced into the bismuth, the shield's tetrahedral etchings flaring electric blue. The angel's momentum carried it straight into the shield. Braka grunted, boots grinding backward through rubble, but he held. "Luna!" he roared through clenched teeth. She was already moving, the demons pressing her scattered as she disengaged with 3 savage cuts, each precise enough to maim without wasting the energy required for a killing blow. Her miracle of speed closed the 20-meter gap to Braka before the angel could pull free of the shield. The halberd punched through the side of the angel's neck and out the opposite shoulder in a spray of incandescent blood. Luna wrenched the weapon free, and the aspect's corpse crumpled against the Aegis, sliding down the shield's face, leaving behind a silver-white, gory smear. Below us, the blinded angel found its feet. It swung wildly, its short swords carving trenches in the stone. 3 demons moving to flank Braka were bisected by accident, their corpses tumbling into the rubble. The angel screamed, eye shards still protruding from its ruined eye sockets. I wasn't going to waste the opportunity. 4 bullets struck its exposed throat while it flailed. Somehow still alive, the angel still staggered, dropped to one knee, and the demons finished it for us. The remaining demons faltered. They'd come to silence a lone sniper. Instead, they'd watched 3 angels and a dozen of their elites die in seconds. 7 milled at the base of our perch, mandibles clicking in what I chose to interpret as indecision. Braka stepped to the edge, World Aegis raised and still crackling with stolen lightning. The burns across his shoulder wept, but his face held nothing but contempt. "Well," he snarled down at them, Who's next? They broke. All seven turned and fled back toward the main battle, scuttling over corpses and rubble. I sagged against the stonework, the Glock heavy in my hand. The spiritual fatigue settled in again, a weight behind my eyes. My mana reserves in the cryovolcano had fallen about 3,000 points. I checked. 11,894 remaining. Enough for 3 devastating shots, maybe 4, before the well ran dry. And if the 4th was needed, I might not have the mana for a couple of minutes. Luna climbed back up, her armor streaked with demon ichor and angel blood in equal measure. Fresh silver bandages wove across the cuts on her thigh and forearm, Argent wave working miracles before my eyes. She breathed hard, but her eyes remained sharp. Without asking, she pressed a silver-shrouded hand to my stomach. Pain flared, then receded as the wound pulled itself closed under the threads of Argent light. My health recovered 50 points, almost back to full, and I suffered a small healing debt. A new melody. A charged indecision, 50 of 50. You have been wounded by electrified blades. Rudimentary battlefield healing has closed the hole, but that is not the same as fixing the damage. Healing received is reduced by 35% until 50 healing is wasted. Luna's voice dragged me away from the overlay. The battlefields noticed us, she said, jerking her chin towards the amphitheatre below. She was right. The demon commander with the fire lance had turned fully toward our position, its compound eyes fixed on the aqueduct. Across the killing field, perched atop her ziggurat, the mirror seraph also turned her head. Even at this distance, her gaze locked onto me like a targeting laser. 2 armies had just discovered there was a 3rd player on the board. Both commanders proved in seconds that they were excellent tacticians. The mirror seraph moved first. 3 sharp, almost dismissive gestures sent the remaining angel scouts peeling away from the demon flanks and folding back into tight formations around her ziggurat. She wasn't retreating. She was consolidating, pulling weaker elements into a defensible core and sacrificing pressure on the demon flanks to secure a command structure. She had read the strategic shift in seconds. Her forces were losing, the demons were winning, and sniper fire from an aqueduct might be an opportunity to turn the situation around. So she stopped hemorrhaging scouts and prepared for a difficult fight. The demon commander took exactly the opposite approach. He screamed the word Zerakul, which I assumed was his name, handed his fire lance to a subordinate, rolled his massive shoulders, and waded directly into the battle line. He marched on the mirror seraph. 13 feet of red bone plate moved through his own troops like a siege engine. The lesser demons parted around him, or were trampled. He'd made the same tactical calculations as the seraph, and reached the opposite conclusion. If the angels were weakened, and the humans were tipping the balance, then he needed to end the angels personally, before we could interfere again. He sent perhaps 30 of his expendables our way. None of us mistook it for a serious assault. It was a nuisance force, sent to occupy us while he finished what he had started. I kept tracking the cooldown in my head. 2006 incoming, I said to Luna, watching the flanking force detach from the main body and angle toward us. Light harassment. He's not trying to kill us yet. Generous of him. Luna said her halberd. Braca said nothing. He planted the World Aegis and waited, burns and all. The first wave scrambled up the rubble at a jog, mandibles clicking, without any formation holding them together. I waited until they bunched at the approach and fired 6 shots in rapid sequence, calculation threading each round through chitin joints and compound eyes. 3 dropped immediately, 2 more stumbled, wounded. The 6th shot sparked off a shoulder plate and achieved nothing. Supernatural aim meant I never missed, except for the moments where a target's movement surprised me. Luna took the 2 wounded ones before they recovered. The remaining demons milled below, reluctant to charge again. Braca flicked blood from his good hand and stared them down. Across the battlefield, Zerakul crashed into the angel line like a boulder through glass. The Mirror Seraph's consolidated scouts turned to meet him. Even at this distance, the battle was spectacular, enchanted weapons clashing in flashes of blinding light. For a moment, the whole battlefield reorganized itself around that single engagement. 7 seconds since the last explosion. I repositioned, hunting for a cleaner angle on the main fight. Through the miracle of calculation, the geometry unfolded in gold across my vision, tracing the probable path of Zerakul's next step. It was fast for his size, but his momentum had a rhythm, and he didn't know my skill set. 8 seconds. I fired. The round struck the gap between two red bony plates at the base of his neck where his armoured plates did not quite join perfectly. The cryovolcano's mana detonated. Ice punched outward through the seam, cracking two plates apart. Magma followed, superheating the space between armour and flesh. Zerikul stumbled forward half a step, which was a big stumble for a creature as powerful as him, then caught himself and turned. Even at this distance, his eyes found me immediately. I dropped below the parapet as the second wave of his expendables broke into an all-out sprint. The Mirror Seraph acted within 3 seconds of Zerikul locking eyes with me. She didn't shout orders. She raised one hand, fingers spread, and 4 clones peeled away from her ziggurat in formation. Not towards us, towards Zerikul. They hit his flanks at speed, one wielding a dark sword, one a blade of crackling light, 2 more with weapons I couldn't identify at this distance. The harassment was immediate and precise, blades slashing at the joints of his armour, driving him sideways and pulling his attention back toward the angel line. The Seraph was a smart foe. Zerikul breaking off to chase me was a nightmare scenario for her. We were a major reason that her forces hadn't been overrun. She needed us killing demons, not running from one. Zerikul disagreed. He swatted the first clone hard enough to send it spinning 20 meters, then bellowed something guttural. His arm came up, one thick finger levelled at the clone with the light sword. 10 of his underlings raised fire lances in unison. 10 detonations painted the battlefield in red. The napalm-thick fireballs didn't just hit the clone, they drenched it, each globule of burning pitch compounding on the last, napalm layering over napalm until the angel clone was a column of roiling, adhesive flame. The clone thrashed. One focus strike from Zerikul shattered it, the clone's mirror surface splintering in the heat and falling as drops of molten silver. Zerikul waded through the still-burning fire and hammered the clone's remnants with both fists. Whatever was left disintegrated. The Seraph's hand twitched. Even from here, I saw her flinch. "He knows how to kill them," Luna said quietly beside me. The remaining 3 clones regrouped around Zerikul as he turned back toward the angel line, but they kept their distance now, circling rather than engaging. I checked my internal count. Recharge complete. "I've got a shot," I said. "Braka, keep them off me for 15 seconds. Braka set the World Aegis without a word. I rose above the parapet and found Zerikul with calculation. Gold swept across my vision, tracking his movement and projecting possible trajectories. He was fast and unpredictable, that enormous body changing direction with no visible telegraph. The miracle built and rebuilt probable paths, discarding each one as he broke it. I fired at his right eye. He turned his head a fraction, and the round sparked off the bone plate above his temple. I fired at his left knee. He stepped, wrong foot forward, and the bullet struck his shin plating and achieved nothing. I fired at the gap under his right arm, a seam I'd identified from his earlier movement. He pivoted into a swing at a clone, closed the gap entirely, and the round buried itself in solid armour. The miracle of calculation kept refining, and I kept firing. Each shot cost me mana, each miss cost me time, and the expendable demons were still pressing from below. Braka grunted, boots grinding backward through rubble, but he held. The burns across his shoulder split open again, wet and red beneath the char. Then Zerikul lunged directly at the nearest clone, and the possible future paths converged into one clear golden trajectory. I aimed for his eye. The miracle of calculation computed the shot. His head was angled down, and his left eye exposed. The trajectory was clean, and I squeezed the trigger. He jolted sideways at the last instant. The round shot his neck instead. It was enough. Frozen tendrils erupted from the injury in every direction. Not a gush of blood, but an explosion of stark white and crisp blue. The shockwave cracked the ground in a 10-meter radius. Magma followed the ice channels, superheated liquid rock tearing through the frozen paths the cold had carved, splitting ice into shrapnel. The 3 surrounding clones caught the full force. One shattered immediately, mirror surface gone, its weapon clattering to the ground among molten fragments of light. A second clone staggered backward, half its body glazed with ice that magma cracked apart, its sword arm hanging loose and useless. The third took a column of fire across the chest and dropped to one knee. 3 rank-and-file demons surged through the smoke without hesitation. The broken clone vanished under blades before it could react. 2 demons piled onto the kneeling third clone, hacking through its cracked mirror surface as it tried to push them off. The Seraph made a sound I heard clearly even across the battlefield, sharp and involuntary, and her hand went to her own chest as another wounded clone was torn apart. Zerakul was still standing. Barely. He had dropped to one knee, both hands braced against the cracked earth, armor at his neck split open and weeping something dark. His head hung low. 10 hiding places emptied simultaneously. Aspects of justice came from beneath collapsed archways, behind shattered walls, from behind a fountain, and from inside the ruins of the mudbrick city itself. Perfectly coordinated. They'd been waiting for exactly this moment. Zerakul on one knee, armor cracked, head down. 10 precision strikes drove electrified spears and halberds into every gap my shots had opened, or into weak points in the powerhouse's armor. Zerakul took all 10 strikes without falling. Then, something inside him broke. A tearing sound rolled out across the battlefield like a thunderclap, somehow pulling inward before blasting out. The air around Zerakul pulsed as a bound realm ruptured. A nova of crystalline shards erupted from everywhere at once, fragments the size of my forearm and larger, each one moving faster than I could track. 4 aspects died before they registered the threat, shredded mid-strike. 3 more were knocked from the air. Every rank-and-file demon within 50 meters simply ceased to exist. Hundreds vanished in under a second, replaced by a crater of glass and ruin. Some shards flew upward instead of outward, vanishing into the purple glare above the battlefield. For one impossible instant, the ceiling warped around the new shards. A trick of the light, but I thought I saw something hidden behind. Then the moment passed, and there was too much death below me to find time to look up again. Zerakul knelt at the center of it, unmoving. The Mirror Seraph descended from her ziggurat in total silence, leaving her shield behind as she drew the largest sword I'd ever seen an angel carry. No reflections formed around her. There was only the Seraph, wings folded, electrified greatsword leveled, crossing the killing field in a straight line toward the kneeling commander. Every surviving demon and angel stopped fighting to watch. The strike was one motion, clean and final. Zerakul's head hit the ground. For one full second, nothing moved. Then, the demon horde broke. There were no orders and no cohesion. 3,000 bodies erupted into pure berserk fury. They turned on the angels nearest them, the structures around them, and each other. A demon sergeant drove its blade through its own lieutenant's back. 2 siege-class creatures collided head-on, grappling and tearing at each other's plating with no tactical purpose. The howling became continuous, a cacophony with no individual voice in it. Behind me, the World Eagers crashed against something heavy. Braka cursed through clenched teeth. Luna's halberd swept past my shoulder into something chitinous. That would keep me safe for a few seconds more. I started counting. It had already been 4¼ seconds. 5. 6. The Mirror Seraph turned away from Zerakul's corpse, diminished by the death of her clones. Her eyes found me, across 300 meters of carnage. 7. She raised her sword. 8. I fired. Calculation painted the trajectory gold, and the round crossed the gap before she took a single step. Ice encased her from the shoulders up, cold absolute. Then the magma surged through. The explosion scattered mirror-bright fragments across the battlefield in every direction, each one catching the apocalyptic light of the burning demon horde and reflecting it back, fractured, and somehow wrong. The Mirror Seraph's sword struck the ground, and with both of the Battle Helix's strongest guardians slain, the illusion covering the ceiling folded into a point, and madness unfolded behind it.